Welcome to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast. Well, today we're joined by Maureen Calamia. She's author, speaker, teacher and consultant. We had a great podcast a few weeks ago, so our listeners, I encourage you to search for it and have a listen. It's really interesting, and some gems of information that she shared with us. She's founder of a consultancy and Feng Shui school called Luminous Spaces, which I think in itself has a great name. She's been featured in many magazines from Good Housekeeping to Cosmopolitan. She's based in New York, and thanks very much for joining us today, Maureen. Appreciate it.
I'm excited to be here again. It was so much fun last time. Thank you, Vanessa.
Great, thank you. Well, can you just as a sort of recap for those who may not have listened to the first one, and might, just as a thing to say what we know, a little bit about yourself and what you do and what, yeah.
Great. So I am a certified feng shui consultant, as you said, and I have a real interest in psychology, a lifelong interest in psychology in areas like that have really kind of offshoot from psychology for the past few decades: eco psychology, depth psychology, and environmental psychology is just a real love. And looking at the metaphor of our living environments and work environments and how that impacts our behavior and how we feel, our well-being.
Okay. And can you sort of describe a little bit about, what Feng Shui is for those who don't know?
Yeah, so feng shui goes back 4,000 or 5,000 years ago in China, and it was really a system of, I think all people all over the world had something like it, but feng shui actually survived, so that we could practice it today. But it was basically a set of tools that helped them figure out where the best places were to live. And not only just survive, but to thrive. So things like, having, proper water that wasn't going to flood their crops, but that would, sustain them, and mountains to protect them from wind, and all these really common sense things were kind of codified in this practice of feng shui. So it's really about this proverb that I love. It says, living in harmony with the earth brings good fortune. And that just, when I heard that as a young student in feng shui, I just grabbed onto that, and that's what has really kind of driven me. Because it's all about connection to the earth.
Yeah.
And feng shui literally is translated as wind and water. And those are the two agents of nature that, can either nourish us and help us survive, or destroy us, right? So it, basically, those are agents that carry chi, or life force energy, throughout the planet. So it's learning how to kind of tap into those natural qualities of the earth and the land itself to figure out how we can live in harmony, to survive and thrive.
Yeah, I love that quote. I think it's really nice. And I know that you combine the feng shui practice with heavily with biophilic design. So it hence me being really interested in how you use the two, and how we can see the synergy between the two. Just as a recap really on the feng shui, it helps a lot of people in terms of like financial issues and career development, and sort of being able to see the wood for the trees, I suppose, in some way.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, really, feng shui can help with any kind of life issue or life situation. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and what I love about it is that it's using nature, it's using the elements of nature. Maybe you could just explain what the five elements are, and I've always been interested in that aspect. And so, yeah, if you could just explain what they are.
Sure. So, really, at the root of feng shui is the Taoist principles of qi, of yin and yang, the opposites of yin and yang, the complementary opposites. And out of those yin and yang really kind of arose the five elements. And really, in a very basic way, they represent different types of energy, and it covers the whole spectrum. So basically, we have the wood element, which is connected with trees and vegetation. So it's uprising. It's that type of energy. Then we have fire, which we call ascending. So it's ephemeral. You can't, it's not tangible. You can't grab it, but it reaches up toward the heavens. And then, of course, we have earth, which is very grounded and stable. Then we have metal, which is the energy of contracting. And we're going into the autumn, right, in the Northern Hemisphere. And we're in Earth right now, but we're going into the autumn season, which is when the deciduous trees bring their energy back into their trunks. And then the leaves dry up and fall off because the trees are trying to conserve for the winter. So that's the energy of metal, of contracting. And then finally, we have water, which is the energy of descending, like rain. And like anybody who has spilled a cup of water, you realize it will find the lowest level, right? So water always descends to the lowest level. So the Chinese looked at these as kind of archetypes of energy and how everything comes from them. Of course, the elements are also the real material of those different qualities. Like I said, the wood, the fire, the earth, which is the soil, metal, which are the minerals buried deep within the earth. But metal is also related to air and breezes and open sky.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's water, which of course is the water element. But there's so many layers to the five elements. It's just something that, well, really inspired me because I've been studying Western astrology since I'm 12.
Oh, really?
Of course, that's based on the four elements of the four Western elements, right? Fire, earth, air, and water. And I really connected with the archetypes of the elements from, a child and really loved that. So when I discovered Feng Shui and I discovered there was this five element system, I was just, oh, I got to learn about that. And and then really what I learned is just the depth to the knowledge of these elements. I mean, they are used in Chinese medicine. So when you go to an acupuncturist, many of them are evaluating, if not all, are evaluating what element is out of balance in your body and what that's related to. And it can be really complex because each of these elements has an organ system connected to it. I don't know if you want to hear about that.
Yeah.
Just quickly, wood is liver, the liver system. Fire is the heart, the pericardium that protects the heart. Earth is the spleen. Metal is the lungs, hence it's connected to air. And water is the kidneys. So there's just this whole idea of harmony within these organ systems that creates health. And of course, those of us who think a little bit more deeply about our connection to all, you see the microcosm to the macrocosm. And, in on the earth, it's the harmony of all these elements on a greater level. And, we are intrinsically connected to that harmony on the outer world, right? So what I really love is that these qualities come down to also personality traits. So, it is the archetypes, the Carl Jung kind of archetype information, which I just find so amazing. And I really love to work with clients on that level, helping create more harmony in their home and workspaces. And as you mentioned, I also do speaking, corporate speaking. So I talk about it, to, big groups, like how to make their little work environments, if they can, control some things to make it more harmonious for them. So they can be more productive, as we know, but also have greater well-being. That's the real thing.
Yeah. I mean, if you know, it makes sense, really, doesn't it? That, you know, we spent most of our sort of prehistoric time, if you want, outside in nature and being connected to nature and having an innate understanding of, you know, what's good, what's bad, you know, and being part of our planet, really. And all the elements have different energies and different chemical, you know, constructs, and you know, I mean, even engineers and, you know, or chemists who are listening to this program will understand the fact that different, you know, they resonate at different energies, and so it just makes complete sense. And I think it's a lovely way, you know, irrespective of the fact that it actually works, that it's a lovely way of actually using the different elements that we are, which I want to talk to you about as well. But also, you know, using it as a kind of kickstart, really, to focus on something that you can actually make a change with. So rather than it just be airy fairy, oh, I'll stick a plant in here, or I'll do that, you can actually have some kind of like a list of things that you can do that make sense to yourself and to your inner being. I mean, one of the things that I want to talk about, you've got an online quiz analysis of, you know, people's personality, because you said you're interested in psychology, of course, but it sort of spits out the fact that you're a different element. I came out as fire, so I don't know. I don't know if that's what sort of personality is a fire person?
Yeah, and I was like, well, of course she's fire.
Yeah, I know you said that.
The fire, you know, they have all labels, archetype labels, and some of them are a little more esoteric than others. So, fire is known as the wizard, and you could be like, oh, what does that really mean? It is, I label it the inspirer, because a fire is just exudes warmth. It's charismatic, it's magnetic. I mean, when a fire person walks into the room, everybody notices. Everybody, you know, because usually they walk into the room, you know, having a conversation with somebody else and laughing and, you know, a lot of vibrancy. They are the most yang of all of the elements. And there's lightness, there's enthusiasm, passion, and they're also very good with, you know, like with what you're doing here, you know, gathering people together and interviewing people and kind of being, shall I say, the center of attention, but not necessarily because you have to be the center of attention, if you get what I mean. They actually bring people together, and they're very good at that.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's quite a nice positive thing. I'm glad it's got a positive resonance. Otherwise, I'd quickly change my personality and go and do something else.
Well, you know, it's funny because, you know, as in astrology, I learned like every sign, every element has positive qualities, but there's also obviously negative, just as many.
Maybe don't talk about that. Not on here. My partner's listening to it, so no.
Yeah. So, you know, it's really the way I look at it, it's gifts. And it's what you choose to, or do you choose to, you know, be kind of the higher octave of your archetype or the lower, your vibration, you know? So, you know, and in my book, I go through kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know. But I focus more on the good because I think everybody has those qualities that are good, but they may also kind of go to that lower octave.
Mhm.
And just giving them some awareness of that they might resonate and go, oh yeah, yeah, I get it. It's all about, for me, I feel like these elements and astrology help you learn maybe some gifts that you don't even recognize in yourself, and also your weaknesses, and help you kind of learn from that and improve. It's
Mhm.
all about spiritual growth, I feel.
I think that's really quite interesting as well. I mean, just sort of maybe to maybe use me as an example. I don't know, like fire as an example, or maybe compare if someone's like wood or water or whatever. I don't know. But if someone is struggling financially, for instance, I mean, what implementations could they do? I mean, does it differ? Does it vary, you know, considerably between elements, or is there something that everybody could do?
Well, yeah, I would say that there's overarching things that I would, and it's also like in Feng Shui, we say that our homes are a mirror reflection of us and what's going on in our life. So, really, when I get a floor plan, there's so much juice, there's so much to like analyze and investigate. And you know, you might see in the, we're not getting into this today, but there's something called the Bagua map, and that is like 8 life or 9 life aspirations, and wealth is one. So the far left corner, if you're standing at the front door, would be wealth. So maybe there's a back door, you know, in wealth, and maybe there's no latch, you know. And I had a client who has a farm, and in the wealth corner there are like 4 gates, and they're very flimsy. So it's like, you know what? I think money's like going out. So we're not going into that today, but for a fire person, because fire is so extroverted and generous, I might ask some questions, you know, like, what is going on with your money? And it might be that the fire person is, you know, helping this one out, helping that one out. And people come to them, right? They're attracted to fire. So, and they know that they're generous. And fire sometimes doesn't know the limit. So it could be that, or it could be that they're a little flamboyant buying all these shoes because, you know, fire loves fashion, and they, you know, not everybody that's fire, but they may overspend. So that might be an issue with fire people.
Okay.
Not so much for earth. Like earth is a little bit more responsible. So maybe for them, you know, they're very grounded and very responsible and reliable. And they also are people that want to make sure that that everyone around them is good. So they might also have a little problem with lending money out. But Earth is definitely not, you know, they're a little spendthrift. You know, they're going to hold their money. The problem with them might be that they're too sedentary and not earning enough. They're not getting out there and, um, you know, earning the money. So really, for any life situation, it's not good enough to know that they're having a situation with money. It's what is it about the money?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going out? Are you bringing a lot in, but it's going right out? Is it that you're not bringing enough in, or you know? So there's a bunch of questions that I would ask for any client that comes with that issue, for sure.
Okay. I mean, also in terms of, you know, talking of sort of career as well and sort of future, I mean, people have been furloughed, I mean, over here particularly, or they've been made redundant. I mean, maybe they have an idea of what they want to do. I mean, they might have like absolutely no idea. They're like, oh, I don't know what to do. But just say, for instance, they want to focus on their dream path. I mean, what 5 element, you know, things that can people adopt in their space? I mean, also, I mean, you could bring in biophilic design as well. I mean, you know, are there elements that you can combine the two as maybe as a generic thing, or?
You know, yes, as we talked about in our last podcast, there's I actually developed a system of biophilic design based on the 5 elements. So they're just, to me, they're just connected, very at a very basic level. So when I do recommend a particular element, there's always the natural connection to biophilia and biophilic design. Um, but when I look at the 5 element system, the element that is really, well, I would have to say that all the elements are related to creativity in some way or bringing it out into the world. But the water element is about our like ability to be still and to listen to our inner knowing through meditation, through yoga, or just being silent. So that is a very important element to perhaps bring in. If people aren't feeling like they have an idea of what they want to do, is to bring more stillness and reflection into their life. Also, water is connected with dreams and signs and symbols of nature. I have it's called augury. It's that noticing of nature around you and recognizing that it's all synchronicity because it's all connected. So if you have questions in your mind and you're aware, and that's what the water element does, it allows us to be still enough to be aware of what's going on. We are often guided by things that happen around us. Maybe a particular bird on our walk. We can look up this, what that bird represents in a spiritual way, in a deep meaning way, or it could just be something that happens in our lives, like our car breaks down. Well, maybe think about that and pull it apart and figure out why did that happen now? And I have these questions in my head. So there's so much that there's such a resource in water. So in order to connect to water, I was just saying to have that stillness, and do meditation, but you can actually bring water into your environment. So maybe a water fountain, or maybe going to a body of water. I love waterfalls.
Yeah,
I
I do.
sound, and of course the beach. But the sound of water is just so soothing, and it puts me in that meditative state and stillness. And I think many people also are able to do that.
Mm.
I think when we're in our homes, sometimes it's hard to be in that place because if we're living with other people, we get distracted, or we get distracted by our social media. But if we can go to a place like a waterfall and just be still, we can pick up those signals, of things that we should perhaps be doing.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice idea, and I think that's what I was really quite interested to hear from you, like a biophilic from a biophilic design point of view. Which elements of nature, or which of the five elements, would you incorporate into a living space that would help those aspects? So, for instance, like you just mentioned, bringing like a water fountain in or something. And I've been recording these mindful moments in nature, and I went to the Eden Project actually a couple of weeks ago, and filmed some waterfall, and it's really beautiful. So I want to do something special with that, and obviously the water sound, and maybe have like soundscape over the top, but something like that, which sounds like it could potentially be of benefit to people, to have even as like an installation, or have it as a screensaver, and then they kind of flick across to it, that they then have those moments to help their focus.
Absolutely. And I can't remember, there was an article that I saw a few months ago about bringing, it's like a video into the hospitals for the staff, and
Yeah,
perhaps you saw this too,
yeah,
but they're kind of, they created like these calm rooms so that's, the nurses and doctors and other staff could go in there
yeah,
and could flick on, they'd have a choice, so they could watch the beach and the waves come up, and it would be surround sound and the image, so they could actually feel like they're there.
yeah,
And I thought, what an amazing thing to bring into a hospital.
yeah,
But at our homes, true, if we're in workspace, if there's a way that we could tap into that, absolutely, a screensaver, or yeah, just pulling something up that will
yeah,
give us that beautiful sound, yeah, to
yeah.
help create some calmness.
So what about, I mean, you mentioned if we're living with someone else, or obviously we know there's been a lot of relationship issues. I mean, there's lots of probably, I don't know if there's going to be any sort of lockdown babies emerge. So obviously that's a positive result of relationship lockdown. But obviously there have been like cases of domestic abuse and some really awful things that, you know, people have been immersed and stuck together and maybe for the first time, and, you know, they've had their own independent lives and now they're living on top of each other. I mean, what would be like one or two kind of fundamental 5-element enhancements? What pieces of nature that can we, or what 5 elements, one of the 5 elements or 2 or 3 that would maybe alleviate some of the tension or to support a relationship building, maybe bridge building as well? I don't know, what would you recommend?
Well, I would definitely recommend Earth. That's number
Oh,
one.
really?
Earth is about being um, listening to all parties. So it Earth is that stable, grounded kind of base that you need in a relationship, and it's known as the peacemaker. That is the archetype name. So, that alone, is really, really important. So the earth element are, rocks, ceramics, pottery, images. So you could have some artwork with like open landscapes, mountains, of course. Mountains are really, a little bit masculine, but they are strong. And if you actually bring in mountains that are more rounded, it's a more feminine and more gentle rather than like the Rocky Mountains, which are very masculine and jagged, right? So you want to bring in smoothness. The fire element also, so like candles,
Yeah.
and bonfires and things like that, because uh, it that type of light creates coziness and intimacy. It's an environment that you feel more intimate and that you could speak from your heart. And fire is about compassion. So that is really cool. And of course, we always associate, romantic, candlelight dinners, right? So the fire element is really big. Um, and, I mean, all of the elements probably, the wood element associated with growth and health. So it's vitality, and the wood element is known as the pioneer, which is a different kind of quality, but it is about, well-being and growth. So those would probably be very good.
Okay, cool. So when you say bring in like a wood element, would that be like a um
It's
like what kind of thing? Like a piece of wood or like a wood table or what?
plants actually would be number one. Yeah,
Yeah.
plants would be number one. And then there's a lot of other things, obviously, that are non-element that we would do in feng shui. But as far as the elements go, definitely earth and fire, and maybe some water, wood.
Okay. I mean, what about sort of like boosting creativity? I mean, like some people have, I actually started a novel. I'm good at starting things. So
Congratulations!
thank you. I've also got another book on the go. I'm kind of, yeah, I do a lot of things like juggle. As if we all might not be a Monet or a Shakespeare or whatever, but if we do have that inside us, how can we, again, in terms of the 5 elements, what sort of nature, and which of the elements can we bring in to really boost that or to help kind of spark that to spark that creativity in us? I mean, it might even be just designing someone's logo. Someone might actually be working and actually just I can't think straight, I can't, and I just need a different boost, a different stimulus for creativity.
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying before, the water element is very much the element that's kind of like that seed of the idea that we need to incubate. So, as I was saying before, we need to have that kind of stillness of water to incubate ideas and to just kind of run through them and have them internal
Mm-hmm.
before we start manifesting and think through and that's analytical, but um, we need to kind of let that creativity flow. So water's great. Like I said, water fountains, sounds of water, um, images of water too. So if you work with some beautiful water, that's really great. But also each of the elements then kind of play a role in the creative process. So the wood element would be next. And the water element, like I said, is introverted, it's within, but you're not going to get anywhere if you don't get that idea out, right? So the next step is to have the courage to take the next step and kind of bring it out. And that's wood, because wood is that uprising energy. Wood is a yang element, and it's the pioneer. And that's where like the sprouting happens of your idea. And I'm just looking at this cool chart that I created for my book, Creating Luminous Spaces, just to make sure that I've got the words right.
Yeah.
But wood is about getting out there with courage and being bold and taking initiative. It's your drive and motivation. And so then the next step is to have that vision of what you want to manifest. And that is fire.
Okay.
Fire is that, it's developing that project, whatever that creative thing is. And it's really about kind of flowering. Think about, the elements. I mentioned before a little bit about metal, how it's connected to the seasons, but think about each element. So the water element is winter,
Okay.
and that's where you kind of incubate ideas. It's also midnight.
Oh, really? Okay.
Metals. And then wood is the dawn. So the sun's rising. So that's when you're bringing that idea out. It's, early spring, things are sprouting. Fire is like the summer solstice. So it's the peak. And that is the place where you're able to, your ideas are flowering so that all can see. And it's your expression, and it's your ability to kind of bring it out to people and get that enthusiasm and passion going for the idea. But if you just stop there, nothing's going to happen with your idea, because then comes your commitment to doing it. And that's Earth. So that is this time of year. We're at the summer, the autumn equinox. That is that commitment, that ability to bring people in to help.
Okay.
Need different people that can help you manifest that project. You need an editor, maybe a book coach if you're doing a book. You need obviously some really good friends that can help inspire you and you can bounce ideas off of. So that's all earth. And then finally, you need the confidence to actually get out. So that's achievement, and that's metal. And we
Okay.
haven't about metal too much today, but metal is absolutely essential, because metal is the kind of the organizer. It's very discerning, and it's at that point in our project where we maybe have all these ideas of what we want to do, but then metal helps us filter out what is really going to work and what doesn't. And it helps us focus, and it helps us create structure. So that book outline, or maybe it's that to-do list of, I need to do all these things in order to get the job done. That's metal, and metal is great at that. And what I do find is that and it's very detail oriented. What I do find when I talk to clients is, if they're having trouble actually getting out there and getting a project done, they're having a glitch in one of those elements.
Okay.
So, they may be good on all of them but one. And if that one is not manifesting, they're not going to be able to complete it. Or they will complete it, but it will be a failure. It won't be what they wanted. So all of these elements are really crucial to really getting anything done. So, I tell people you have qualities of all these elements. I mean, it's obvious because, we are doing things. Everybody's doing things. Everybody, you know, from the simple, like, I've got to repair a window idea, and then it's those steps, who do I need to get to help to, and I have to have the money, and I have to, do the to-do list and all that. So we do have these qualities when we tap into them when we need it. But sometimes for bigger projects, or even ones that are really like what our soul wants to do, sometimes we get blinded by one of these elements, and we just need to kind of hook into that element. So I really do feel like the five element system is great because you could identify, oh, it's the fire I need. So then maybe you need to bring in, um, if you have a fireplace, use it at night, put some candles out, maybe get a beautiful image of the sun or some kind of artwork that feels fiery to you. Um, to get inspired to go to that level of passion and commitment.
I love that idea. I love how I mean, people listening to this, I mean, if you are, working on a project that you might be stuck on, or you just can't think, you just can't get that creative thing. I just love the fact that you can work around like the year, like, or a day kind of concept, from like water, when you've got the seed of the idea, the wood, growing the idea, fire, developing it, flowering it, earth, kind of that nought and sort of to energize, and then metal to actually organize it so that you actually get it done. And if you like you say, if you've got a roadblock in any of those parts, it's what a lovely way of kind of just giving yourself another sort of kick to focus on something that you can control and do something about. You can, okay, like you say, oh, I can put the fire on, or I can have a picture of the fire, the sun on my desktop, for instance, so and that subliminal thing will go into our minds and go into our spirit and soul or whatever, and really kind of generate something. And I love the fact as well that it's cyclical, that it's all part of one thing. We're all part of one globe. We're all part of one energy system. I do quite love that thing.
Yeah,
um,
awesome.
It's obviously people who are working from home. It's kind of like a sort of final question from my point of view, and then if you've got any questions or any comments afterwards. But if people are working from home and they've got a home office, or home or a working space, it might not be ideal. But maybe we talk about if you've got a space that's dedicated to working, even if you had to clear it away mostly during the nighttime. But what sort of 2 or 3 things can they have on their desk that would just help them, just would help them or enhance their working day, their working environment?
Mhm. Okay. Well, I
No
wasn't
pressure, no pressure.
I wasn't thinking about the desk itself because I kind of would like to back up and say, first, where you're working, of course, is really, really important. And I feel access to sunlight and nature views is really critical if you can have it.
Yeah,
So, and that's biophilia, and that is feng shui,
yeah,
because we feel better when we have them. Of course, when you work in a corporate office space, those window offices are coveted by everybody, right? So if you're working from home, try to have that. But if you can't, this other thing also you may not be able to have, but it's called, in feng shui, it's called command position. And in biophilia, it's called prospect and refuge. It's the same thing. It's basically having your desk positioned so that you could see the door that uh, that's for the room, the door to the room, open door to the room. And in very basic terms, if people are working in more open kind of concept spaces, it's so that you don't have your back to everything else going on in the room. And it doesn't matter if you live alone. We don't know that in our primitive brains. We are always in a state of very, very low state of like fight or flight when we can't see what's behind us because we get kind of distracted. So part of our energy is about protection, protecting our back. So I really recommend people have a good full view of the room. And if people are working from home for a long time and they're able to kind of figure it out, I really do recommend trying to dedicate a specific room to work. And if you can't, at least set up a workstation where you can have a full view ahead of you, because you will be so much less distracted and have much more productivity if you can see what's going on in front of you. But if you can't, live healthy plants is my number one suggestion. And people will go, well, especially, okay, especially if you can have access to nature views and sunlight, plants are really critical. There are plants that don't need direct light. So, I mean, I have blogs on them, but you could simply Google that, you know, what are good plants for low light conditions? That's really, really important. I do suggest a mirror. And this is feng shui and biophilia, because one thing about working on a computer, it's short vision, right? It's short distance.
Yeah.
And when we're stuck on this all day long, we get headaches. We don't allow our kind of like our eyes to rest. So especially if you don't have a window, having say a mirror in front of you or on the side of you gives you that opportunity to kind of gaze while you're thinking things.
Yeah.
And mirrors give you that longer distance view, because your eyes kind of go into them and they're seeing other things, right? It's also good because what I was talking about before, creativity. The water element is really good. So mirrors are considered water.
Okay.
So it's really nice to be able to gaze into a mirror, to give your eyes a rest, and also to kind of inspire like creativity. Something else with windows and mirrors is that it's really good to have long distance views. So, you know, if I look out my window, and I'm very lucky that I live in a suburban area, so I've got, you know, a house, but then I've got trees behind the house that I see, and I see lots of vegetation. So I have a rather long distance view rather than having a building
Yeah.
that's right, you know, 6 feet away and blocking any kind of long view. So long distance views also inspire creativity. I should have mentioned that before. And mirrors provide that if you don't have a window. Another thing for your desk, well, the desk itself is kind of interesting, because you could have a desk that isn't appropriate for your work, which can, if your desk is too small, it can make you feel really frustrated that you can't like spread out. So I really do suggest having a desk that's ample enough space for you to be able to spread out. But on the other hand, you need to kind of tidy up at the end of the day and not just have everything all over the place. So that's really important, to be able to kind of feel like you're able to do the work you need to do. I had a client who was working from home. He was constantly passed over for promotions. And when I saw his desk, it was like shocking. The desk that he used at home, and now, of course, this is before the lockdowns.
Yeah.
He was using his childhood desk and his little chair.
Oh,
I'm talking
really?
his childhood little chair,
Yeah.
like big man, grown man sitting on a little chair at a desk. And I looked at it, I said, what is the metaphor here?
Yeah.
You know, and like he saw that, like his eyes just were like he realized he's being passed over because, you know, he's thinking of himself as small.
Yeah.
He's not mature enough for these roles, and it just was like a light bulb went on.
Mm.
So And then of course you don't want a desk that's too big, because then it's like your energy is just kind of dissipates. So or that you're too domineering maybe in the job. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, it really does. I was just thinking, I haven't got anything water. I've got some postcards on the thing of beaches and things, like a lot of cartoons actually, kind of illustration type sort of things. But and I'm surrounded by wood. I'm surrounded by lots of wood stuff. Um,
Well, well, wood actually supports fire.
okay. Oh, so it's a
So
good thing.
there,
Yeah.
yeah, there's, so, you know, we talked about that cycle, right, of
Yeah.
the day. So whatever cycle, whatever element is before you is the one that feeds you.
Oh,
So if
okay.
you go from, you know, dawn
Yeah.
to noon, dawn is wood and noon is fire. So that is supporting you.
Oh, okay. Oh, this.
So yeah, I'm going to add a fourth thing. You know, the desk could be a challenge for people to change their desk at this point, but if they identify what their element is, having something representing the element that supports them or the element itself. So fire or wood for you
Mhm.
would be really
Okay.
good to have, and to be inspired by what's around you. So those cartoons, if you love them and they bring lightheartedness,
Yeah.
um, or inspire you in some way, that's great.
Mm.
That's really great.
Yeah, because there's just you saying about the water element, you know, I mean, that's I've got a lot of ideas, a lot of creative, there's a lot of stuff coming in. I don't think there's enough metal. I don't think there's enough, so I think I need a bit more earth. I need some more rocks around me. So I need to kind of get some more rocks, and I need some elements, some metal stuff, which will kind of consolidate things and then actually help me focus on stuff. So and get it out there. So I'm actually really, that's really, I've learned something. So I hope the people who have been watching on the YouTube channel and also been listening on the podcast have learnt something too. So, Maureen, thanks so much. Is there anything else that you would like to add at all?
I would just suggest that if you're interested in learning about, it's called the True Nature Quiz. That's on my homepage. And my website is luminous-spaces.com.
So that's luminous.spaces.com. Sorry, not luminous dot, luminous.
Luminous-spaces.
So yeah, I did that deliberately, of course. So that's luminous-spaces.com in case you missed it the first time. Maureen, thank you so much. Really lovely talking with you, and yeah, I hope we can do it again soon. It'd be lovely.
Yeah.
And there's, for the people who are listening and watching, there's another article that Maureen has written for us. So do check out the journal of Biophilic Design.com. You can read it there. So Maureen, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks, Vanessa. It was great.
thanks. Thank you for listening to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.